Hi, I'm Dalton Eklund with Eklund Properties. This is Kelly Eklund with Eklund Properties, and this is Craig Houston with Goosehead Insurance. This is our episode of Coffee Talk. So firstly, my first question is, if I were to look for an insurance, do I just Google it or?
That's a great question, Dalton. And Kelly and Dalton, thanks for letting me join you today for this coffee talk. So there's a lot of ways you can go about pursuing insurance, but I would always recommend working with a local broker that you can call and get a quote with. When you go online, you put your information in there, and those leads are sold to many different insurance brokers, and you start getting a lot of phone calls. When people call me as an independent broker, they have one point of contact. I can send them my digital agent where they can fill out a link and get all their information. It's a very seamless process. And then I put their information in the rater system, and it rates 40 different carriers. So most of the same carriers that are online are going to be the carriers that I represent. Companies like Progressive and Safeco, Travelers, Allstate, and a myriad of others. And so I can get them oftentimes the best price and the best coverages. And they're talking with a real person that they could reach out to and get the information they need.
Okay, and without all the spam texts and stuff.
Yeah.
I love that you mentioned that, because there is nothing worse than trying to find information and then ending up with a phone that rings all day long from people you don't know. And we all know you work with people that you know and trust. So how great that they can find one person who has access to all of that information. You can be their point of contact for their questions. You can find them the best rates, and you have access to all of those companies, but they've got one point of contact. I love that. I love that.
Yeah, so it's kind of the mixture of the best of both worlds. What people like about going online is the ease of convenience of just filling out the information, and then all the variety or the choice that's there. But we have what they don't, and that's bringing in the human element to help walk you through what you need, educate you about the insurance. But we have the power of choice, and we have and the high technology kind of married with personalized service.
I think that's fantastic. I think too, a lot of times people are afraid of that call because they're thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going to be called 700 times by this person. But I'm telling you, Craig's a great guy. And to be able to just ask you those questions one-on-one, to have you be able to answer questions that maybe they don't even know they have yet. I wonder how many people really know the ins and outs of insurance, that they know it well enough maybe to even think about not only what kind of coverage they're getting and whether or not that's sufficient, but what that's going to mean for deductibles, what that's going to mean for co-pays. I think a lot of people just don't know even what they don't know.
Yeah, I think you would probably be shocked to know how many people, when they're calling about insurance, maybe it's for their autos, and I'll ask, what about your homeowner's insurance? And they don't even know who the carrier is.
Wow.
Because they'll say, when I bought my house, somebody sent me an insurance quote, and I got the insurance, and I don't know what it covers. I don't know who it's with even. That's a fairly frequent thing. And then on the flip side, a lot of people who are paying high prices, the only thing they know about their insurance is they're paying more than they want to.
Right.
But when it comes to the coverages, they oftentimes have no idea about it. And that's not necessarily their fault. A lot of times they're not educated about what their insurance needs are, as well as what their insurance might cover. And I think about this, when somebody's buying a home, maybe they're a first-time home buyer.
Right.
They're buying their biggest investment they're ever going to make. And if something happens with that investment, if it, God forbid, if it burns to the ground, they should want to know, they should have interest in wanting to know what their insurance is actually going to provide for them if there is a catastrophic loss.
Absolutely.
So it's just really something it takes just a little bit of time, but it's amazing how more empowered people feel as your clients when they are educated on what their insurance does and does not cover.
And there's a whole lot of, speaking of first-time home buyers, there's a whole lot of information that's coming at them at one time. And insurance just one small part of it, but what a huge part of it. It's the thing that lasts beyond the closing, right?
Correct.
Like you mentioned, those catastrophic things that can happen. I know that you work in several states.
Yes.
Washington,
Yeah, I work in the entire Pacific Northwest.
Okay.
I'm licensed in Washington, Oregon, Idaho, and Montana.
Okay.
And that's where a significant portion of my business comes from. And then I'm also through a network of Goosehead agents. I'm able to write business in all 50 states
Wonderful.
with partnerships with other agency owners. And so I know I have people that have maybe investment properties in Florida or Arizona, and we can help them even though they may be here in Montana or Oregon, Washington, and Idaho. So
Wonderful.
I like to be able to have that versatility.
Right.
It's interesting too, as you know, we work in 2 states, and it's always interesting to me the different kinds of claims that come out of the 2 different places. Like in Washington, never saw a need for hail damage,
Yep.
right? But in Montana, it's a thing.
Yep.
It's a regularly occurring thing.
Yep.
What are some things that you run into that are rather surprising for claims that maybe people don't know they need to be aware of?
So it's a great question, Kelly. Claims are something that is one of the reasons why insurance rates are going up anywhere between 10 and 35% year over year for every carrier out there because of the catastrophic losses. But one of the problems with it is that people, we talk about hail claims in Montana,
Right.
they're in the billions of dollars.
Wow.
Just in one season, I think it was in 2021, there was a major hail out.
Mm-hmm.
And most, many people were affected. Well, all those insurance carriers had to pay out in the billions of dollars. So it's a catastrophic loss. And then in Washington, you may have a windstorm
Mm-hmm.
where there's water damage that comes in from seeping in through the roof or gushing in
Right.
potentially. So there's kind of some different claims where people get themselves into problem is they try to file claims. They have a $1,000 deductible and they have a $1,500 repair and they file a claim for it to get the $500 paid for. And that's really not what homeowners insurance is for.
Okay.
It's for the big catastrophic losses, with the exception of some of the smaller, in a policy there'll be some smaller endorsements. They may be for something like the service line endorsement, where if you have a clogged sewer line
Mm-hmm.
between your house and the road and you have a service line endorsement, that has a separate deductible and it pays usually between $10,000 and $20,000 for the excavation and repair of the service line.
Okay.
Of your sewer line, if there's maybe a root ball or something that grows
Right.
into it from a large bush or tree, that's something different. You use that.
Okay.
But it's the minor things that, maybe some small damage that happens in a storm and you can easily repair it. I would recommend, and if people call me, I'd recommend, hey, just handle that one on your own.
Good.
Because
Like
your
broken
rates, because if you have one damaged window, it's not going to be worth filing a claim.
Right.
And call your insurance broker first so they can walk you through that. Because as soon as you call the carrier, they have to log that
The call.
as a loss, even
Okay.
if you never file a claim for any money.
Okay.
And so it still has a negative impact on your loss history.
Okay.
And so call your broker. That's another reason to have a real
Broker.
life person who's
Mhm.
your go-to, and they can help kind of guide you through that process with the catastrophic claims that have been taking place across the entire region. You have entire states that major carriers have pulled out of.
I've heard.
Like California.
Mm-hmm.
State Farm was the #1 insurance provider in California, and they completely pulled out of the market. They do not write homeowners insurance there. So it's a very challenging time in insurance,
Okay.
and it's not because insurance companies just want to make more money. They have to maintain their financial viability to retain their A rating as a financial institution, to back up all of the risk that they have assumed in covering properties.
That makes sense. That makes sense. And I go back to how valuable then are you as a broker being able to take that call from the consumer who says, hey, I just had a small problem. I'm thinking about filing this claim, and you're able to say to them, wait, before you do that, if there's a way that you can manage this on your own, it's going to be better for you in the long run. It's going to save your rate for later.
Ultimately, it's still their decision. I don't,
Right.
But I
But
can
it's
advise
helpful.
them in
Right.
what I would recommend, and just helping them navigate that decision.
That's wonderful.
And it's something that can have a real impact on your future claims. You want, in the environment that we live in, a lot of at renewal, a lot of people are being canceled on their policies because of small claims, or another inspection is done and their house has a lot of clutter in the yard and they're just getting canceled.
Okay.
And that's insurance carriers, once they've passed the inspection period, they cannot cancel you for in that first in the year of the term.
Okay.
Until the renewal. They can do a non-renew on pretty much for a lot of different reasons. So
Okay.
that's something to keep in mind. It's
Keep
not
the
just
house up.
it's not just buying the house; it's maintaining it.
Right.
Because you think about this: an insurance company carrier says, "I'll take the risk for that house," and you pay $1,800, and a month later, your house is destroyed by a fire, and they pay out $435,000.
Right.
They will never recuperate that
Right.
investment. Okay, so this happens even you think about in our region with the hail claim. There's homes that had $40,000 and $50,000 claims on their roof, their siding, their windows, and that house, when it was insured, even if the client thought I'm paying too much for this insurance at $2,000 a year or $1,800 a year, what they got in return was very significant.
Right.
And even with that kind of level, that's not going to be recouped for many, many, many years.
Makes
and so
sense.
insurance carriers have to make changes and decisions on what risks they'll assume, and they have to increase their rates. That's why the rate changes happen, because if the insurance carriers aren't profitable, they're private companies, they're not government entities, they're private companies, and if they don't maintain their solvency and their ability to cover risk, they will not be allowed, they'll be out of business, because one, lenders won't allow you to use those carriers because they've lost their A rating. So it's just it's important to kind of understand your personal insurance. You don't have to understand the whole market and to be a homeowner, but just to understand a little bit of what's going on is helpful.
I think that's huge.
Well, we're talking about home insurance specifically.
Yeah.
So from my understanding, I saw on Kim and Jake Blaine's interview with you a couple weeks ago, they kind of talked about home insurance and like basic home insurance. So that covers everything inside the home except for personal belongings, right?
No, that's a great question, and it was a great interview with Jake and Kim. I appreciate them. What the question was what does homeowner insurance cover? And it covers basically in two big, and I tell this to every person I'm talking to on the phone, it's like essentially your insurance covers two main things. It covers your property and it covers your liability. So your property has a bunch of subdivisions underneath of it, but it's the house, and then it's also your stuff. It's your personal belongings, and that would be everything inside the home, whether it's your appliances, your furnishings, your clothing, your guitar, everything in the house. However, if there is a need, if you have a large collection of something like guns or furs or jewelry or musical instruments that exceed what would be a sub-limit within the policy. So you may have $200,000 of coverage for personal property, which is your personal goods, but maybe it's only $5,000 for each individual type of item, specifically like jewelry or some type of collection. And it varies depending. It could be $2,500, it could be $5,000. So we recommend scheduling on your policy anything of that you have of significant singular value. So like a $50,000 grand piano should be on a schedule on the policy.
That way it's not grouped in with something not covered.
It simply states the piano, the name, the type, the manufacturer, and the value of that. And then there's a guaranteed replacement of that item if there was a loss.
Okay.
So, yeah.
That's helpful.
That's really helpful.
I think most people don't think about the liability portion that you mentioned either. Do you want to go into any detail on that?
We live in a very litigious culture. The lawsuits are very frequent, unfortunately. And when you own the home and you have a liability risk, if somebody's staying at your home overnight or if they're coming to visit for a barbecue and there's something that is, proven to be of, negligence, maybe a board that's loose or, a nail sticking up somewhere on the deck and they trip and fall, there's two portions of liability coverage that protect you as the homeowner. One is what's called medical payments to others. And so similar to how it would work in auto insurance, if you have that, if somebody gets injured, the initial payment of getting them help, maybe taking them to urgent care, comes from that medical expense, that medical payments to other. And it shows good faith in helping to make sure people are taken care of. Beyond that, I try to write, and this is something when people look at their homeowners and policies, oftentimes they have very low liability limits. And I always recommend a $500,000 liability limit. 300 is kind of the low mark that I would use. And I try to always make the liability coverage to be greater than up to the 500,000, greater than the value of the home. And it's just a protection for you and for your asset that you have if you were to get into a liability situation.
Right.
So that's the two essential portions of homeowners insurance is the property coverage and the liability.
Which makes it so you don't have to like bubble wrap everything in your home. This is nice.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Can you think of any more questions that you have?
I think that's about all my questions.
Do you have any other questions that you get asked that you would like to share answers to that you think would be helpful?
Yeah, I do get a lot of questions, where usually it's like people are focused on, they want to save money. And I always want to, that's the win-win. If you can
Right.
save money, my win is if I can help somebody save money and increase their coverages at the same time, it's a win. Because everybody's thinking about the present month. I'm paying X for my car insurance, for instance.
Right.
They're not thinking about when they get into a car wreck that puts somebody in the hospital and destroys a vehicle,
Right.
and they're stuck with all, maybe bills that they are responsible for, and they weren't covered properly. And so
Correct.
that's the piece where it's like I'm all about trying to help people save money, but not at the expense of having the appropriate coverage that they need.
Right.
I can
And so-
appreciate that.
Yeah, and I think, and I'll tell them very transparently, as a Goosehead independent broker, Goosehead Insurance has standards. So like we don't sell at state minimums because we have an internal standard that we don't allow that because we don't feel like it sufficiently covers our clients. And here's the reality, we're all people are people, right? This way is that when something bad happens, it's not their fault, it's your fault that they were not properly covered, even if you
Explained it.
and recommended this higher coverage because it was, $20 more or something that they chose not to do it. So I always try to be very clear and very transparent with people with regards to that, and I'm more interested in doing good business than just doing business.
That's
So-
awesome.
I actually thought of one more question.
Go right
Yeah.
ahead.
So you do homeowners insurance, but do you do like automotive or any others?
Absolutely. So my business is primarily focused on working with realtors and lenders, and their referrals to me is in the home buying process. I also work with property managers or people that have rental properties where their clients need renter's insurance. And then every time I always, my radar system, it automatically pulls and runs their auto insurance. And I can help people that don't own homes that need auto insurance, and I've got some great carrier options, some brand new ones in the Montana market that have been very aggressively priced, and so that's been very helpful.
Absolutely.
That's a great question. And so I do homeowners insurance, auto insurance, umbrella insurance, renters insurance, home, boats, manufactured homes, motorcycles, flood, earthquake, life, And then I also do commercial insurance, so I can insure, apartment complexes, businesses, beauty shops, a wide variety of commercial kind of applications.
Okay.
And, I have, even have some very young clients that are first-time auto owners that
Okay.
I've been helping. That one young man that found me, he's a high school student, and he found me through Google, and we've kind of built a good little relationship. And he's referred me to some of his buddies where they're not on their parents' plan. And,
Oh man,
so
that's
it's
tough.
It's
Right.
tough.
It's
And
tough.
I have options for people that have never been insured before.
Okay.
And so I try to find a way to help. So
Right.
and make it make it as affordable as possible. So
Awesome.
Well, I know we're looking forward to doing business with you ourselves.
Absolutely.
So highly recommend.
Yeah.
Sounds like you cover just about everything.
yeah, and when it comes to insurance, there's not a lot that we don't do. There's a few commercial type fields that we kind of it's not our focus because we're so laser focused
Okay.
on primarily on the home auto, the what's called personal lines insurance is the real bread and butter of Goosehead Insurance. Goosehead is the largest independent brokerage in the nation, so we have a lot of power and strength behind us. But I am an independent insurance broker and owner, so I own my agency, the Houston
Wonderful.
agency here in Great Falls, but serving the Pacific Northwest. And I'm a Northwest boy. My grandparents were from the High Line here in Montana. I grew up in the northern Oregon coast in Astoria and lived 20 years in Washington, and now I'm here in Great Falls. So come full circle through the Northwest, and
Well, it's
it's
nice
in
to
my heart.
have you.
Yeah,
It's nice to have you
Absolutely.
here. It's nice to be able to work with you in both Washington and Montana.
yeah, absolutely.
That's wonderful. We
Fantastic.
really appreciate you taking the time to meet
I
with
learned
us
so
today.
much today.
Thank
Thanks,
you
I
very
appreciate the
much.
questions.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Yep.